Amalek. Amalek is known as the archenemy of the ancient Israelites. Why? Because as we were wandering in the wilderness, the Amalekites attacked from behind, where the most vulnerable, the most defenseless among us were, the elderly, the women and children. So when cowardly calls forced 3 Canadian JCCs this week in Toronto, London, Ontario, and Vancouver to evacuate for fear of bomb attacks, we recognize the voice on the other end of the line as the voice of Amalek. Elderly in the pool for physiotherapy, children preparing their Purim plays, are these the ones they attack because the goal is to terrorize and to disrupt Jewish life? Thank goodness no one has been physically hurt, but there is no such thing as an empty threat. Each threat does real damage. Every level of government and law enforcement is responsible for tracking down the criminals behind these hate crimes, now in the hundreds across North America. In recent days, we have received calls of concern and support from every level of government. We here at Holy Blossom have received these calls of support, each one asking what can they do to help. And you may have seen that the Prime Minister on Wednesday wrote this. This week, Jewish communities across the country have again been targeted by hateful threats and acts designed to make us all afraid. I want to say again, we will stand by you every day in the face of intolerance, prejudice, and outright criminal acts. We understand the fear and anxiety each one of these threats creates in the Jewish community, especially when the locations targeted are places where Jewish families and children gather. The cowards who target Jewish schools, community centers, and synagogues won't shake our resolve and will work with law enforcement to bring them to justice. In Canada, the Prime Minister continues, we stand together because we know that diversity is our strength. It builds this country. Jews of Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, and across the country should know that they have the full support of the Government of Canada. As we guard against a resurgence of anti-Semitism, we are with you and will do everything we can to keep you safe. And just yesterday before Shabbat, there was another statement from the Prime Minister, remarkably teaching about Purim. And I'll just read the concluding paragraph where he draws out the messages from Purim, saying, we honor this celebration of triumph over persecution and oppression as both a testament to the resilience, bravery, and joy of the Jewish people, as a reaffirmation of our responsibility to stand against anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and prejudice. The government denounces recent acts of anti-Semitism and other acts of religious intolerance in the strongest terms. We cannot and we will not tolerate any expressions of hatred and discrimination in our communities. On behalf of all Canadians and of our family, Sophie and I wish those who celebrate a joyous Purim. I spend some time on these words because they do help. I feel it does help. These words of expression, of concern and care are appreciated and are essential at a delicate time such as this. We've also received similar messages from Muslim Canadians who say they can identify because they too are threatened. And yet, on another level altogether, we Jews are the only ones who can defeat those who are behind the bomb threats by denying them the satisfaction of disrupting Jewish life. That is what they are after, to disrupt and to dismantle Jewish life. Our congregant, Ellen Cole, who is the executive director of the Miles Nadell JCC, was here for services last night with many prayers in her heart. Under her leadership, not only was everyone evacuated safely in less than 10 minutes, But they were also restored to their regular programming as soon as they got the okay to return inside. By the time I reached her, they were already making Humintashen. Similarly, by you being here today, you also defeat the Amalekites of our day. Coming to study Torah and to lift our voices in prayer is, as it has always been, an act of defiance for those who wish to harm us, because Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim are the most powerful protection. And what of God's protection? Where is God when we really need her? One answer is told by Rabbi Dov Ber of Mizrich, who was once walking on a street accompanied by his disciples, and the Rebbe noticed a little girl hiding in an alcove, in a little corner, weeping. And the rabbi asked, "Why are you crying?" And she answered him, "I was playing hide and seek, but my friends didn't come to look for me." Rabbi Dov Ber then turned to his students and taught, "The answer in the tears of this child teach us to listen for the weeping of the Shekhinah. It is written in our Torah, God says, 'I will surely hide my face.' It is as if God says, 'I have also hidden my face, as it were, but no one comes to look for me.' God is waiting and wanting for us to search and find. And when we don't, God is lonely and God is brokenhearted. They have forgotten me, God says." Let's have a look at the verse which Rabbi Dov Ber refers to. If you open up your Chumashim to page 1389, you'll see it. Page 1389. This is at the very end of the Torah, the very end of Moses' career. The Eternal said to Moses, "You are soon to lie with your ancestors. This people will thereupon go astray after the alien gods in their midst. In the land that they are about to enter, they will forsake me and break my covenant that I made with them. Then my anger will flare up against them, and I will abandon them, and I will hide my face," most literally, I will hide my countenance from them. You can see in the Hebrew, "V'histarti fanai mehem." I will hide my punam, my face, from them. They shall become ready prey, and many evils and troubles shall befall them. And they shall say on that day, "Surely it is because our God is not in our midst that these evils have befallen us." That is to say, God's already anticipating what we're going to say when we are at risk, when we are oppressed. We'll say, God has abandoned us, and now that we are vulnerable without God, we are unprotected, and so it's all God's fault. Verse 18, "Yet I will keep my countenance hidden on that day. I will surely hide my face." The Hebrew says in the emphatic, "Va'anochi haster astir panai bayom hahu." I will surely keep my face hidden, my countenance hidden on that day, because of all the evils they have done in turning to other gods. According to Dov Ber, it isn't because God has abandoned us that we are vulnerable. We are vulnerable because we have abandoned God. And to accuse God of the evil is like blaming the victim, as it were. This is one theological view which is not shared by everyone, but I bring it to you today for your consideration. The rabbis, our sages, saw suffering, Jewish suffering in their day, and they wrote the following in Midrash Tanchuma: "Sometimes God is seen and sometimes not. Sometimes God listens and sometimes not. Sometimes God can be sought and sometimes not. Sometimes God can be found and sometimes not. Sometimes God is near and sometimes far. The great 20th century Jewish theologian Martin Buber picks up on this theme and devotes a whole book to it entitled The Eclipse of God. And there he asserts the following: God speaks, but the God who speaks sometimes hides his face from the house of Jacob. That's a quote from Isaiah. There are times when we are unable to recognize God's word in history and in nature too. So uncanny and barbarous do God's deeds seem to us, Buber says. These are the mute times, when everything that occurs in the human world and pretends to historical significance appears to us as empty of God. For one who believes in the living God, though, for one who knows about God and then is fated to spend his lifetime in a time of God's hiddenness. This is a very difficult way to live. Buber claims such a time is ours, a mute time. Our life is the life of Job, he says, as a post-Holocaust theologian. Our life is the life of Job, the forsaken of God. For that very reason, the only answer is to lament and to hope that we receive an answer. What was the answer that Job received? The only true answer when he cries out is God's appearance. God's appearance turns God's distance into nearness. God gives Job, who suffers, no explanation, no justification, no theodicy. Nothing is adjusted, nothing is fixed for him. Wrong has not become right for him. Cruelty has not become kindness for him. Nothing has happened, but that man again hears God's address, and that in and of itself is a comfort. God does not correct anything for Job. God does not intervene into human history. Buber then offers this great challenge to his readers, asking, are we able, even in this muteness, even in this dreadful time of hiddenness, to maintain our side of the dialogue with God? Do we stand overcome before the hidden face of God as the tragic hero of the Greeks before faceless fate? No, Buber says, rather even now we contend. We too contend with God, even with the Lord of being, whom we here chose for our God. We do not put up with earthly being. We struggle for its redemption. And struggling, we appeal to the help of our God, who is again and still a hiding one. In such a state, we await God's voice. In these unforgettable words, Martin Buber has defined both the despair and the hope of the Jew in the contemporary world. The rabbis pick up on the Hebrew of our Torah text. V'histarti fanai mehem, I will hide my face from them. Va'anochi haster ester panai, and I will surely hide my face from them. And they hear in those verbs the name Esther. We see in God's absence the presence of Esther. We hear emerging in her voice a whisper of God's voice. Because she leads and she loves her people, the hidden God, the God in hiding, is revealed to her and to everyone of her time, Jews and non-Jews alike. Because she acts in the image of God, God's image is revealed to all who read from the Megillah, even to this day. God's name is, of course, not mentioned in the scroll of Esther even once, but through Esther, whose very name means hidden one, concealed one, God's presence is discovered and uncovered. so must we act in our world as Esther, to reveal something of God who is all too often hidden from view. Let me conclude with one final teaching, which I came across this week in my studies. Rabbi Art Green, in his book Radical Judaism, quotes from his teacher, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who asks, why is it that the Torah seems to be so obsessed with idolatry? And why in this very text from Deuteronomy, which we just read, is the context idolatry? Heschel says, why is the Torah so concerned with idolatry? You might think that it is because God has no image, and therefore any image of God is a distortion of God. But no, Heschel says, it is precisely because God has an image that idols are forgiven to us. What is that image of God? You are that image of God. Because the only medium in which you can shape that image is with your entire life, with your whole being. To take anything less than a full, living, breathing human being and try to create God's image out of it, well, that diminishes the divine, and that, therefore, is considered to be idolatry. So the question for this hard week, the question for this eve of Purim, is how might we make ourselves more and more an emblem of the living God? How might we make of ourselves evidence of God's nearness? For God may be hidden, but God is not far off. God is not hidden in the seventh heaven, but perhaps like that girl playing hide and seek, God could be very nearby. Let it be so.